To order the September 18th meeting of the River Falls Board of Education. This meeting has been properly notified, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do we have any visitors or delegations who would like to address the board this evening? I see a few people making their way up. If you would like to address the board, please tell the board your name and limit your comments to 2 minutes. Now, people who have come to meetings before know that I like to be gracious in terms of not stopping your 2 minutes when you are in the middle of something to say. Although today I am planning to be able to keep you really close to 2 minutes. So please watch the timer and listen for the bell. All right, the first speaker.
Okay, Jackie Nickham, City of River Falls. This is regarding the 411 rule. Point number 1, it appears from this current version of the 411 rule that a student can request the school to honor his or her identity change without notifying the parent. Formal changes would require parental involvement. So, in other words, the school will go along in pretending a gender change. Point number 2, the 411 rule policy change from transgender students to gender diverse students is obviously meant to include those students who pretend they are cats or dogs. Point number 3, from an article dated August 19th, 2016 in the Red Wing newspaper, Mr. Benson is quoted as saying that there was little dissent regarding the transgender policy dated October 19th, 2015. So that was a year later, and he was quoted in this article. Mr. Benson said very few community members had any idea, saying that there was little dissent regarding the transgender policy. Mr. Benson, very few community members had any idea this was being incorporated into school policy, and that is still true today. Point number 4, I find it interesting that this policy is so important to Ms. Myers that she delayed the final vote on it until she could be present. Point number 5, page number 4 of the 411 rule for today's meeting lists the final approval date of this policy as September 18th, 2023. I guess that means that it's already approved, it's a done deal. Point number 6, thank you to Ms. Curtis for standing with parental notification and voting against the first reading of this policy. There are
Thank you. The next speaker, please.
There are now states that have passed legislation requiring parental notification if their child requests a pronoun change. These states are Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Montana, North Dakota, Tennessee, and Utah.
Ms. Nickham, your time is up.
This generation of children has been exposed to so much sexuality and even the pornographic reading material in the classroom that it is no wonder that there is so much confusion for them.
Ms. Nickham, your time is up.
When a school keeps this type of information from parents, you are a potential participant in the grooming of that child. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board this evening? Please tell us your name.
My name is Aaron Herfindahl, and I would like to share a letter from my mother in support of this new gender policy change. To the School District of River Falls members of the board, I'm writing today as a voice of support for the new gender diversity policy proposed by the board's vote. As the mother of 3 sons that have either graduated from or are still attending the River Falls schools, I applaud the district for developing and bringing forward this policy. It is my passionate belief that the best thing we can do for our children is to love, accept, and celebrate them for who they are, not who we want them to be. And it is the sacred task of teachers to hold and protect spaces for all students to be who they truly are. In a time when our youth are facing unprecedented mental health challenges, we must do all that we can to protect, defend, and hold these spaces, particularly for our most vulnerable students. This policy will do that for possibly one of the most vulnerable populations in all our schools and communities. As the mother of 3 sons, one being gender diverse, I know that this policy is necessary, important, and life-changing. I know that there are feelings of fear surrounding these policies, stemming from the unknown, lack of understanding, and those who lack exposure to differences in people. But that fear should not rule the day. Doing what is best and right should be our utmost priority. The next step needs to be moving this policy into practice, which supports, uplifts, and protects all students, but particularly our most vulnerable. I ask you to vote to enact this policy for all our students, because as a much wiser leader than I once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, and to deny any of our children the ability to be their true selves is an injustice and is a barrier to receiving their best education possible. Thank you, Caroline Herfindahl.
Good evening. My name is Carmen Gillis, and I have children in the River Falls School District. I'm addressing Policy 411 on transgender students. If I had known about this policy in 2015 when it was originally written, I would have spoken up, but I had more trust for our district back then. This policy is dangerous to our children. It promotes the lie that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. If I told you I was fat, but it was visibly clear I had an eating disorder like anorexia, I would hope someone would have enough love for me to speak truth and get me the help I needed instead of letting me believe I was fat and then starve to death. To tell a child that because of their, in the policy words, deeply held and sincere sense that their chromosomes lie to them is the opposite of love. Love and truth go together. And it is disappointing to see truth thrown out in this policy. We can empathize with feelings, but as adults, it is our responsibility to be honest. There are many wonderful, wonderful teachers in this district, and it is wrong for the district to state in this policy that staff will honor a transgender student's request to be addressed by a chosen name. I feel for every teacher who will now need to decide if they stand up for truth in their conscience or if they go along with lying to students. I commented on the bathroom section in this policy last time, but I will state it is completely unsafe, physically and mentally, for female students to be in a bathroom or locker room with a biological male. The last section I will comment on in this policy is regarding parental involvement. The policy states that based upon exceptional circumstances related to the student's safety or mental health, the superintendent may suspend the parent-guardian consent requirements. I understand not every home situation is ideal, but that does not give the school district the right to not inform parents. Parents are the parents and not the schools. This policy is destructive and not helpful in any way. It is not loving, and I'm disappointed that this was written in 2015 and now being revised. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Jim Souter, community member. You've heard me before object to this policy. I think it's unnecessary. I'd like to see it suspended altogether. The courts are divided on this. There's a lot yet to be determined, and yet we keep hearing that some judge ruled a certain way. There's still a lot of court left to be done. I think that common sense can rule here. I think we can honor children. We can honor parents without putting it into policy that is so restrictive and ties the hands, really, of common sense. Now, I agree with what I just heard from the last speaker. However, I just want to emphasize and ask one more time that the board publicly, when you deliberate publicly, that you do state your position on whether or not you will follow through with discipline for a conscientious objector. If a teacher or a staff member, there are over 500 according to this little handout, if somebody in that group decides that is against their moral laws within their heart to not call a student who they know to be a male by a female name or opposite of that they would be disciplined by this policy. So further clarification needs to be made, and I think you owe it to the 500 staff members to know where they stand on this issue. Will they continue to work here? I don't know. Will they continue to ride it out for a year? I don't know. But I think being honest about the intention of this board with regard to teacher discipline or staff discipline is very important. I'd like to hear everybody's opinion. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Hal Watson. I am from right here in River Falls. I am a parent that has raised 3 children through the school district. I support the changes to Rule 411 and the work that the board and the school district administration has done on this topic. I don't have any problems in terms of the safety aspect, because I think that the board has done a good job of supporting all of the students in this with this policy. I believe that that this policy takes into account all the different perspectives, threads the needle, gives the administration the flexibility to take individual perspective on individual situations, and I think you've done a good job on that. From reading the policy through, my perspective is that you've looked at it from all sides, you've taken your legal obligations into account, and that you are doing the right thing if you adopt this policy. As someone who studied anthropology, I can tell you that there are a lot of different ways to live and be in this world once we get outside of our own community. And I think that this policy respects the students and the way that they want to live in their world. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Brenda Larson. I have a graduate from River Falls School District and 2 children currently in the district. I'm speaking tonight in favor of the policy under consideration. A couple reasons. First is that whether or not gender diverse students are acknowledged and that their choices are affirmed in the River Falls School District, these students will continue to identify themselves in gender diverse ways. But if the school board doesn't put policies into place protecting these students, they will have to do so without the support of their school and possibly their teachers and peers. The research on this is heartbreaking, showing high rates of suicide and suicide attempts for gender diverse youth that do not feel support from their family and from their community. Again, increased rates in suicide and suicidal thoughts from those that do not feel support, not just from people that identify in gender diverse ways. Unsupported gender diverse students and people. In addition to thinking about gender diverse students, I'm thinking of my own children who do not identify in a gender diverse way. I want them to grow up with the knowledge that there is diversity in our world, as the last gentleman said, and that this diversity should be celebrated rather than feared. I want my children to be prepared to go out into their post-high school lives with the knowledge of what it looks like to be considerate and respectful for everyone they come into contact with. And I want them to be able to use and have had practice using inclusive language and understanding inclusive policies that they will almost certainly have in their future educational and work settings in a world that is much larger than River Falls. This was something I will admit I had fear or uncertainty and a lot of qualms around this issue until I myself, as a 40-some-year-old, did some of my own research. If anyone's looking at an easily accessible book that helps understand what a child that, as the policy says, has deeply held and sincere sense or psychological knowledge of one's own gender that's different than what they're assigned at birth, I'd recommend a book by Lori Frankel entitled This Is How It Always Is.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm Bonnie Jones Wittoon. My daughter graduated from here with wonderful education. And I want to say how supportive I am of this hard-working board. You are putting in place a policy that I wish had been in place for my gender diverse niece, nephew. When Charlotte decided she was Charlie, the family struggled. But what she really struggled with was a non-supportive school. It was very hard. She attempted suicide twice. She's been in therapy ever since. And so I'm speaking to this as a person who's really directly involved in our family. We have two gender diverse individuals in our family. One was in a school system somewhat similar to this, where there was some support. Another was in a school system that probably reflects more what's going on in Arkansas and Florida. It was difficult. I commend you and I thank you and I support all the work that you're doing on gender diversity in this community. Thank you.
My name is Carol Motis. I'm a resident of the River Falls School District, and I'd like to acknowledge the concerns that some of our residents have with this policy. It reminds me very much of when drinking fountains were integrated in the South, when schools were integrated in the South. There is that uncertainty when we've grown up with a certain mindset to have to change that. But I'm looking at 2023, 2024. This is not a local issue. This isn't a River Falls issue. This is an issue that's being spoken about nationally and internationally. I'm vice chair of a very large university's research board, and gender diversity is something that has got to be accepted in all research. Binary identity is not acceptable anymore. And I really appreciate the fact that our school district and school board are addressing this now, because if we don't, we'll be left behind. So the people who are very concerned about this, I'd like to invite them to be part of the solution rather than part of a problem of not addressing this at this time. And let's work together to come together with a plan that does work for all of us sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pam Souter, and you guys know that I'm a community member. I often bring things to you that I hear from people in the community. So one of the things I want to do is I want to say thank you very much for responding to several requests regarding the human growth and development curriculum that people in the community have asked for, AKA sex ed. And sending that agenda from, I think it was April 2022. I just got it last month because most people did not know about it, and also the scope and sequence that they had that had embedded links. So that's helpful to community members, particularly parents whose children have those courses. And I know you guys are updating the your website. And so one request would be, can you please put that in the links when you put in the curriculum? And, whoops, sorry. Also, please be proactive in including the portion of the Human Growth Advisory Committee. I know that in the rotation that you are having, there are no plans to be meeting anytime soon, but I know that you can also request a meeting when you want in the curriculum rotation, and so I'm asking that you please put that in advance to on the website transparently, so that people can start thinking about it and have sufficient time to apply for that. So thank you very much for that response, because there are people that were wondering about that. And I'm just going to say that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Willis Rivera. I am a community member of River Falls, and I had 2 children go through the River Falls School District from kindergarten on, and I am speaking in support of 4.11. And I do have a son who is transgender, and so I've done a lot of research on this topic. People have been talking about fear of sexual assault in locker rooms, and the research actually shows that transgender youth who are segregated in locker rooms or bathrooms, 36% of them are sexually assaulted, which compares to youth in general in the high school, middle school range of 24%. So it's actually the transgender youth who are much, much more in danger by having this high segregation. So I commend that you are allowing students who identify particular genders to be able to use the facilities that fit their gender. I also know that for my son, having the support of his teachers in all kinds of things, anxiety, depression, I feel like his life was saved one day when he had a panic attack in class and a teacher kind of pulled him out and sat in the hallway with him, right? The teachers at River Falls High School, all the schools, have been phenomenal and have really been able to work with our kids both as a group, but also pay attention to their individual needs. And that is what this policy does. So I thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Cindy Kernahan. I'm a community member. I had 2 children who graduated from RF High School, and I'm also a social psychologist. And so when I look at this policy, what I see is something that's thoughtful and nuanced and carefully worded, I think well-written, and also scientifically informed, which is important. As Jennifer mentioned, the youth who are the most at risk are the gender-diverse youth. And so this is a policy that will help protect them. And I appreciate that, and I'm grateful for it. And also, as an educator myself, I know how important it is for children to feel validated and affirmed. It's hard to learn when you're focused on feeling threatened and feeling like you're not cared for. So I appreciate it from that perspective as well. So again, just want to add my support for the policy and the hard work that you've done. I know how hard it is to write things like this, and I think you did an excellent job. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Tristan Sprague Williams, and I'm a community member. I have 1 child in the school district and a second one coming up. And I just wanted to, I'm glad I got here just in time to be here and voice my support for the policy on transgender students and their use of bathrooms and facilities. I wish I'd heard more because I wanted to have a chance to speak in response to the others, but I can speak in response to what I heard at the previous reading of this policy. I heard some folks voicing concern about cisgender students feeling afraid or uncomfortable, and sort of the perspective that this was unfair. And I just wanted to recall my friend Vicky Cobian and her comments that she offered last time, because I thought she made some really meaningful comments. She was speaking from a religious perspective, but even from a secular perspective, what her words were very meaningful to me, because she spoke about facing her fear and facing the unknown and doing what is right despite one's fear. And so I think I just wanted to sort of remind everybody of that, and I really wanted to say that I believe that what this policy states and what it supports is really the right thing to do. And for those who feel doubt, I just wanted to offer some support and encouragement. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Dana Anderson Logic. I'm a parent in the district. I'm an employee of the district, and I'm a product of the district. I'm just going to make a few quick points. I'd like to thank the board for proposing a science evidence-based policy. I also want to make the point that gender is separate from sexuality. It is not the same thing. They are not the same issues. I would like to also note that this policy makes room for individual locker rooms and bathrooms for students regardless of whether they are gender diverse or not. If a student does not feel comfortable in a locker room that supports personal gender identity, that they are available to use an individual restroom or locker room. That is in the policy. I'd also like to point out that we're raising our students to be adults in this world, and this world is diverse. That's not going away. I'd also like to say that this world, sorry, I lost my point. Regardless, we have the opportunity to support our staff now, and why would we not make that decision? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Faye Sprague-Williams. I'm a resident of River Falls, and I have one child in the district. So I know one concern that people have with this policy is that they're concerned it may make some kids feel uncomfortable or unsafe. So I thought we should consider the options and what effect they may have on kids' comfort and safety. One option is to allow trans kids to use the bathroom that aligns with their gender. In this option, all students are able to choose the bathroom that feels to them most comfortable and safe. If any cisgender kids feel uncomfortable with the possibility of sharing a bathroom with a trans kid, then they have the option of using a single stall bathroom. So I do not see any negative effect on students' feelings of safety in this scenario. The other option is that we don't allow trans kids to use the bathroom that aligns with their gender. In this option, cisgender kids are still able to choose the bathroom that makes them feel most comfortable and safe, but trans kids are not given that same choice. On top of that, the trans kids get the message that their school is not supportive of their identity. Does that have any effect on students' feeling of safety? Let's consider that in 2017, the Center for Disease Control did a survey among high school students that found that trans kids are more than 4 times more likely to feel unsafe going to school than cisgender kids. They are almost 5 times more likely to be threatened or injured with a weapon at school. They are 3 times more likely to experience sexual violence, and trans kids are 5 times more likely to attempt suicide than cisgender kids. On the flip side, several studies have found that when trans youth have affirming school environments, they feel safer and are less likely to attempt suicide. So which of these 2 options creates a greater feeling of safety and comfort for our students, and which puts more kids in danger? To me, it is clear that allowing all kids to use their preferred bathroom is the option that is going to create the greatest sense of safety at school for our kids. And that is why I support this policy, and I thank you for considering it.
Hi, I'm Beth Evans. I'm a parent of 3 kids in the district. As a parent of gender-expansive children, I support this policy and believe that it is the duty of our school system to support our future generation in how they express themselves. I see on a daily basis how our students are affected both by supportive and unsupportive environments. I have watched in real time the improvement in mental health and social involvement when students are supported. As our kids grow, I believe it's our job to guide them and support them in becoming their best selves, not to tell them who they are or to restrict their potential in becoming their best selves. I believe that this policy will be a step in the right direction for our students as we grow along with them and learn from them how to become our best selves.
Angie Branham, a community member and proud parent of a transgender individual at our high school. I spoke at the last one, wanted to continue to reiterate that there is a lot of thought, effort, and intentionality put into this, listening to community members and their concerns. The one thing that I wanted to bring out specifically is the names and pronouns. The one thing that I appreciate in the policy is that names and pronouns being used upon request by the learner, by the student, will be respected by teachers. There is not a lot of extra effort that's required to use names that they prefer, to use pronouns that they identify with. That's what I've always said about parenting my child, is if they wanted to use a different pronoun, a different name, they were still the same person. They were still the same soul, the same essence of a person. I believe that in their years in Greenwood, Meyer, and River Falls High School, that their teachers have used the pronouns and the names that they prefer, their personal pronouns that they identify with, without a policy that says they will respect. I have not known a teacher yet to have any sort of individual conflict of interest or any conflict with calling my child by the name and pronouns. So just wanted to thank you, and I appreciate the fact that there is lots of effort put into contacting parents, working with the children to facilitate a conversation if it's not quite safe to do so, to come out to their parents with their name and pronoun, and it's not keeping things from parents. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address the board this evening?
Hello, my name is Peggy Gant, and I'm a teacher here in the district for the last 20 years. And I just wanted to address the board in terms of staff and the expectation put on them to embrace students. When I'm a teacher in a classroom, I'm not looking at a student in terms of their religious faith, their background, whether they're rich or poor. Excuse me, that run. I'm there to teach a student. I leave my personal agenda at the door. And so to me, gender diversity is the same thing. It's inclusivity. It's about teaching the student, not focusing on what I personally feel is right or wrong. So.
Would anyone else like to address the board? All right, then we are going to move into informational items, and the first one is an acknowledgement. Perhaps you realize that our school board is part of what's called the Wisconsin Associations of School Boards. That means that we have support from this conglomeration of school boards and the staff that works to advocate on behalf of school boards in Wisconsin. They also take a strong role in helping to educate us as board members so that we are prepared to do our jobs. One of the things that WASB does is keeps track of the length of time that each individual school board member takes in terms of continuing education and learning about our role. So, tonight we are able to acknowledge that Cindy Holbrook, our vice president, has been recognized for attaining a level 2, which means she is continuing to learn more about school board service. I don't have a plaque, so I don't know why. But thank you, Cindy. All right, we are now going to move on to some reports, and the first one, we don't have a student on the board right now, so we're going to move to number 2, administrative reports about building SMART goals. So I think that we'll begin with River Falls High School, followed by the Renaissance Academy. So, Mr. Lidke, you're up.
Good evening, Kit Lidke, high school principal. Our hope is to have a student board rep for you this upcoming October meeting. At our high school, we have 3 specific SMART goals, many of which you've heard before. We continue to stay on those pathways. Thanks to your support and our new school calendar, the first that we would want to talk through my eyesight's not the greatest anymore, would be, I believe, our professional learning communities. I hope that's the one that's up there. If not, I'll wing it. With our professional learning communities, we have over 25 different late starts. Our staff is working on curriculum revisions and common and formative assessments. That means that we're taking the state standards and realigning our assessments to meet those standards, and that good work has started already with our first late start last week, and we have another late start this week, so we average about 3 per month. Our next goal that we have is our academic and career planning and our college and career readiness. It has been our 3-year goal as a district to increase the number of students that are college and career ready. You will hear more from our entire team next month at your board meeting as it relates to that. We've dedicated a lot of time and have shown tremendous growth in that, whether that is students taking upper level college coursework, whether it's students, again, having work-based and youth apprenticeships. We've had lots of our students have lots of on-the-job training or different academies as well, and you'll hear more from our team as it relates to that. The last is our Character Ed initiative. We've had character education, obviously, as a part of our district for many, many years. We're becoming more intentional at the high school in talking about culture with our students. This year, we did something different. We have 4 quarterly meetings with each and every grade level that's catered based on character education. We talked about goal setting and how it relates to our learner profile in our academic and career planning. So this second week of school that we had, we talked with all of our grade levels and talking about developing not only weekly goals, monthly goals, and yearly goals for our students at every single level, whether that's 9th or 12th grader who's looking at colleges or other opportunities after this year. So we've been doing great work. I really appreciate all of your support, and that's our update for the week. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Silver.
Hey, good evening. I'm Chris Silver, Program Coordinator, Renaissance Charter Academy. If you drive past the high school, you'll see a new building that we are leasing, which is the Renaissance Academy, so that's the mystery building, and that's us. We have some exciting goals moving forward in this new space, and I think one of the things is the space allows us to help students in their quest for upper-level math and science courses. We now have a full-blown science lab, and we're excited about that. So one of our goals is just to get more students taking higher-level math and science within our program. If you're not familiar with the Renaissance Academy, we are an alternative high school. We're smaller classroom sizes. We work with kids that have not thrived traditionally in a regular high school setting. Another goal that we have is, and I think it ties into a lot of the conversation tonight, is to make sure that students feel safe and welcome and feel like they're part of our Renaissance family. So we have, with the help of school board, with the help of community resources, we're now offering on-site therapy for students once a week. We have community circles that we run where students have a voice twice a week, and we work very closely with St. Croix restorative practices. Let's see. And another thing that's kind of near and dear to me as a business administration undergrad is that our students, by the time they graduate, will gain an understanding of basic financial concepts and will develop a financial plan for their future. So that's important to us as we get ready to, or help them get ready to enter the world of work, knowing what to do with their resources so that they're secure and they have a bright future that way. So those are our 3 goals.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Mr. Chapin, you're up for Meyer Middle School.
All right, Amanda, put 1 minute up there for me. I'm going to go really fast. All right, so here's the first goal of Meyer Middle School. As you know, we've been working on standards-based grading for the last 2 years. We have 1 more year to get that work done. The bulk of our work this year is building common assessments aligned to our standards, and we gave a pretty lengthy presentation about a month ago to Ed program. Our second goal is academic growth, looking at the percentage of kids scoring proficient advanced by cohort as they come from 5th grade through 8th grade. We'd like to see 2% growth in ELA and mathematics. That's lag data. The forward data is lag data, but we're building common and interim assessments and looking at the results of that data through our PLCs. And then our last SMART goal is the development, and I can't take credit for this totally, but Mary Beth Elliott, who's serving as a PLC coach with us, has helped us develop a PLC notebook. We have 44 minutes to meet. That time goes by very quickly. We want to be efficient. And so putting together agendas, data protocols, and taking notes from week to week is critically important. So those are our 3 goals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all 3 of you, as well as to the leaders of our other schools for this work that you're doing. It's important. And now we will turn to the superintendent's report.
Community referendum survey hit the mailboxes today. The board is looking for feedback and input from the community. I talked about that a little bit at our earlier meeting, but just to reiterate, the survey includes some questions regarding decisions the board will be faced with in deciding what will be included on the February referendum ballot, and the community input on this survey is going to be a major driver in that decision-making process. We need to know this survey is going to at least take the community's temperature to determine, quite frankly, what your tax tolerance is, because most everyone in this room, and by and large our entire community, supports our kids and our schools and our community. The question comes down to a referendum. We're asking you to put a tax on yourself. And so the survey includes some detail that's pretty specific and detailed. It gives you an idea of not only some things that are being considered, but also what kind of a tax impact those considerations would have to help kind of guide your thinking with that. Would really appreciate it to get a massive return on the community survey. As I mentioned, it's going to help the board in their decision making. They will have, survey closes October 3. The board will use October and November to determine, digest the results of the survey, and then determine what will they publish by way of a resolution no later than December 12th. The board has to announce through formal action what the referendum ask will be in February. So the target date for referendum is February 20. Survey's out there right now. Please take time to let your voice be heard and have the board review what you have to say regarding the things that we're discussing and contemplating within that survey. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we are going to move on to action items. So before the board this evening, we have meeting minutes from the August 21st regular Board of Education meeting. We have bills that have been submitted for payment. We also have employment recommendations. So at this point, is there a motion to approve minutes, bills, and employment as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Bob. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. All right, I'll turn to you, Mike, for an update on finance and facilities.
Well, we had a finance and facility meeting on 9/11. All right, can you hear me? Mm-hmm. So 9/11, we had our finance and facility meeting, and it basically was a review of the budget that was talked about earlier tonight at the annual meeting. Any other input from Lynette? Nope. All right. We talked about what Jamie just talked about, the referendum survey, and the importance of getting that out, and we reviewed it and before it went out to publishing, and so look for that in the mail or in the next couple days. And those are basically the items we talked about.
Isn't it interesting how our summaries go fast, but the meetings go long? So I'll give you a summary of the Personnel Committee. The Personnel Committee met on September 11th. We heard a certified staffing update, and so that means about all of the teachers in our school buildings. We also had an update about the new teacher orientation, which was slightly different this year, and it went very, very well, so the board is pleased with the administration's work on that. We also heard a variety of reports related to employee retention, retirements, travel in and out of the district, and so it was helpful to hear that information about the staff members in River Falls. We also received an update about a request for proposal that we have regarding a new insurance consultant. And so we got an update, and now more information is going to be forthcoming. We decided we weren't quite ready to review the high school secretary job description, so that has been delayed. There was no action, so that's the update. And now we are going to move to a consideration and/or action to approve the second reading of revised School Board Policy 411 rule regarding gender-diverse students. I want to give some background about this and point out a few key items in this policy and the rule. So last July, the board passed the first reading of the rule for Policy 411 related to gender-diverse students. Rules are added to policies to detail the board's expectations of how the policies will be implemented. So here are the details that I think would be important for us to keep track of. First of all, this policy, Policy 411, has been in existence since October of 2015. This is not a new policy. The adjustments to the rule add details about how the district will do a variety of things, including support students who are transgender, ensure that our staff have the training to support the students. The rule also requires more communication with parents and some specific instances where parents need to offer permission. It's important, I think, to realize that this policy and the rule are in compliance with case law and uphold the expectations of the Equal Protection Act. This board, quite frankly, is not anxious to be on the wrong side of the law. There has been some misunderstanding about locker rooms and showers in particular, and I would like to address that. This rule specifically states that if a transgender student wants to use a locker room and/or shower corresponding to that person's gender identity, that we will make accommodations that best meet the needs of the individual student and other district students. We are not placing the needs of any student over other students. We are looking at all of them. Finally, I want to point out that the only change from July's first reading until today regards definitions. After some conversation, we intentionally limited rather than expand the number of terms that are defined in the policy. There are 3 terms that are defined: transgender, gender identity, and gender diverse. Gender diverse is a broad category that encompasses a variety of terms. Transgender and gender identity are defined because they are referenced in the policy. Sometimes when you try to list every single instance of how this applies to, you're always going to miss somebody. So we're hoping that the gender diverse umbrella fits a wide range of our students. So with that background, is there a motion, please, to approve the second reading of revised School Board Policy 411 rule related to gender diverse students? Thank you, Cindy.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you, Allison. Questions, comments, discussion from the board?
Is this the final? This is second reading.
Yes, this is the second reading, so as is the practice of the board, we have 2 readings, so we pass a first reading. There could be some potential adjustments. This time there were really very few, and then the board passes a second reading, and then it becomes the designated policy of the district.
Right. Stacy, I'd just
Yes.
make one comment.
Mhm.
With reference to Mr. Sauter's comments earlier, wondering, well, what will happen to an employee who says they conscientiously object to identifying someone by their requested pronouns or name. I would just say that as a school board member, it's my expectation that all 500 of our employees follow district policy as stated, and it's the job of administration to ensure that district policies are followed.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I can just quickly make a couple comments before we vote. I just want to share, I do intend to vote no again this evening, and I want to explain why that is.
Lindsay, you should maybe talk into it
Yep.
a little bit more.
Go ahead. Better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what I said was that I do intend to vote no again, and I want to be clear about why I'm doing so, out of respect for our board and for Mr. Benson.
So I want to just first say, again, as I said in July, that I do appreciate the language that was added to this policy about wanting to maintain positive relationships with families in our district. That was new language that was added over the course of this revision, and I think it's really important to have that stated in the policy. My concern does still remain that while there is an expressed desire to involve parents, there's no requirement for parents to, at the very least, be notified if their student wishes to go by a different name or a different pronoun or use a different bathroom at the school. That's an accommodation the student can request, and the parent does not have to be notified of that the way the policy is written now. So in my personal opinion, I think socially transitioning as a child is a big deal, and it can end up being a life-changing decision. And so because of that, I'm uncomfortable with the possibility that that decision would be made without parents being notified and pulled into the conversation about how to best support a child that's experiencing something as complicated and serious as gender confusion or gender dysphoria. So that would be my primary concern with the way the policy is written as it stands now. And then along those same lines, I mentioned this in July as well, I do also have a concern for some of our staff members who could potentially find themselves in a position where they have to withhold information from a student's parent because the parent has not been made aware that their student is going by a different pronoun or a different name at school. And it just seems to me that that could really create a significant challenge between a teacher or a staff member and parents, and maintaining that trust that we all know is so important in working with parents as partners and educating students in our district. So I think that could potentially be a burden that would be heavy for staff members to carry. So those are my primary concerns and the reason that I'll be voting no. All that being said, I think and know that everyone here cares about our students and their parents and staff and wants to serve them well. Of course, we all recognize and have had conversations about how complicated the nature of this particular issue is, but for me, I'm not comfortable approving the policy as written.
Well, one of the things, I'm all for parent involvement. Obviously, parents are an important part of the puzzle. One thing I think that isn't recognized by some is that some parents aren't engaged in their kids' lives. We have kids at Positive Alternatives that parents aren't engaged. How do we, to have a rule in place that says we have to work through those parents that may be in jail, maybe in treatments. We have students that are homeless, that are don't have parent as part of their life, and so I think this 99.9% of the time, I would hope that parents are engaged. Those parents that are active in their child's lives, absolutely, they need to be involved in this process. For those kids that don't have a parent in their life, I think this gives us at least some flexibility to help those students as well.
So I agree with you, Mike, and I think that is taken care of on page 18 of our packet, the note that talks about exceptional circumstances and the superintendent's ability to not gain that consent from a parent. So I think I'm comfortable with that caveat, and I'm comfortable with that staying in there. I think really what I struggle with is that there are lots of different ways to support a child who's experiencing gender confusion or gender dysphoria. Affirming and allowing a social transition is not the one and only approach. It's actually a fairly new approach, and I think it's important to recognize that every child's situation is different and unique, and they're coming to their gender confusion and are also enduring a lot of other things going on in their lives, and it's impossible for the school to know exactly what's going on in their lives and have a comprehensive understanding of this particular child. And for that reason, I think it's important that we have the standard of notifying parents, pulling them into the conversation. As you said, 99.9% of parents would fit that bill, so we should ensure that we're notifying them, pulling them into the conversation so that they can participate in developing a plan to provide support for a student that is feeling gender confusion or dysphoria.
But what if that parent is not available?
Well, how would we address them for any other sort of accommodation, such as a special education accommodation? I mean, we have to do our very best and make our very best effort to notify parents when an accommodation is being made.
I think that one of the key parts of this is on the bottom of the first page and to the top, where it's talking about the district recognizing the importance of parental involvement and strives to maintain positive relationships. It also talks about the district's willingness then to help convene meetings with families so that kids can feel comfortable, that we can help empower them to be talking with their families. So one of the things I appreciate about this policy is I think it's broad enough to be able to provide some of the options you're talking about, Lindsay, to meet the needs of students who find themselves in this category, while supporting conversations with parents.
But my understanding is that if a student says, no, I don't want my parents to know, that's the end of it. And as I said, I really appreciate the language in here that says that staff will emphasize the importance of parent involvement and assist the student in navigating conversations with parents and guardians about their gender status if requested. That's important to have that in there. My concern is that if a student says, no, I don't want my parents to know, then the district is essentially holding on to a secret for an indefinite amount of time that could not age well, I guess.
Stacy, I want to say that I think it's, as an individual board member, I think it's irresponsible to assume that I know what every family structure is and what every kid's relationship is with their family. I personally am really proud of our administrators for coming forward with a policy that is absolutely in line with our mission of providing a safe and collaborative environment for everybody, and our values that put students first, people matter, equity, respect, integrity. This is absolutely in line with our mission and values, and I appreciate that. I also want to say the impact that policies like this have on the people that they're targeted at is monumental and affects their the way they navigate their daily life in a way that if you haven't been on the receiving end of a policy that targets you as a human, you can't understand how that impacts your entire experience in that space. That's all I want to say, so thank you, Jamie, admin team, board members, community that came out to support this, thank you.
Are there any other comments from the board? All right, and all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So the motion is carried at a margin of 5-1. At this point, are there any proposed or suggested items for future board meeting agendas? All right, we're going to schedule the next meetings. So the Educational Program Committee will meet Monday, October 2nd at 6 o'clock. Finance and Facilities will meet Monday, October 9th at 6 o'clock. The Personnel Committee will meet Monday, October 9th at 7 o'clock or immediately following the Finance and Facilities meeting. The next regular board meeting will be Monday, October 16th at 6 o'clock. Those meetings will all take place in the district office. And now, at this point, first of all, I'll thank you all for coming. But now, the next thing is, I would like a request to move into executive session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985-1. Is there a motion, please? Thank you, Cindy. Is there a second? Bob, thank you. I need a roll call, and we are going to reconvene in the media center. So, Ellison, Bob, Cindy, I'm saying yes. Mike?